cannabis in Pueblo County, including testing facilities, retail dispensaries, cultivation facilities, and product manufacturing. These businesses will close October 31st, 2017. A vote yes will ban retail cannabis businesses. A vote no will keep retail cannabis businesses in Pueblo County. As far as the meeting tonight goes, the original plan, as you probably have heard, was to have a forum representing both sides of this issue. However, we have been informed that those who are in favor, do you want to have these folks up here too or not? Okay, got it, thanks. Those sponsoring the ballot measure have indicated they will not take part in this discussion. So, with that, we would like to invite a couple more people up. Do we have Robert? Bob and Gabriel, could you please come up? Bob and Gabriel is with Los Sueños, and Roger Martin, he's the national president of Grow for Vets. Roger? With that, we'll have some panel introductions for you. Jim Parco, to my far left here, is a fourth-generation Pueblo native. He served in the U.S. Air Force for 24 years, retired as a lieutenant colonel. He's now a professor of economics and business at Colorado College and the co-owner of Mesa Organics, the retail cannabis store, manufacturer, and cultivation outlet on St. Charles Mesa. He and his wife, Pam, that would be the right, I guess? Met when they were sophomores at Pueblo County High School. And they've been together for, they've been together for 32 years. You can say, aw, that's sweet. All right. Pam Parco grew up in Pueblo West, where her parents opened the first True Value hardware store in 1977. After attending Pueblo County High School with Jim, she graduated from CSU Pueblo, where we both have something in common. We are both products of the Miss Pueblo pageant. She won, I did not, but that's no bad feelings there. As a military spouse, she embraced the opportunity to be a full-time mom to her two daughters, rather, and later became an elementary school teacher and a certified dyslexia specialist. She left teaching 2 years ago to open Mesa Organics with her husband Jim, where they seek to improve the lives of people and their pets on a daily basis. They have a very cute little dachshund. Roger Martin, to my right here, is a proud veteran of the United States Army who has been coping with chronic pain since the 70s. He credits cannabis with having saved his life in 2010 by helping him overcome a 10-year dependency on dangerous prescription drugs, including Ambien and Oxycontin. In addition to his military service, Roger has a background in law enforcement. Inspired by encounters with fellow veterans suffering from PTSD and other serious medical conditions, Roger began offering free cannabis to vets in March of 2013. In January of 2014, he formalized his efforts by establishing Grow for Vets USA, which is a tax-exempt nonprofit organization. Since then, Grow for Vets USA has provided more than $1 million in free cannabis to thousands of our bravest young men and women. And to my far right, Bob DeGabriel is the property owner and lead investor of Los Sueños, the largest legalized retail cannabis cultivation operation in the world. Say that 3 times fast. Located on 36 acres, he employs 72 people in Pueblo County with a payroll of over $2 million annually, where they cultivate 21,800 marijuana plants. If you haven't been out there, it's absolutely incredible. Bob graduated from North Carolina State University. He's a fellow Tar Heel like me, 1971. He's a father of 5 and a grandfather of 5. Before getting into the cultivation industry, Bob spent a full business career in blue jeans. In blue jeans? Like Levi's or Wrangler? Or... Oh, gotcha. Was a developer for 26 years before retiring. He came to Pueblo in 2013, a year prior to retail legalization, with a vision of large-scale agricultural operations for the production of America's newest crop. Along with his business partners, he's invested over $13.5 million in Pueblo County. At this point, I want to give our participants 3 minutes for an opening statement. Pam, let's go ahead and start with you.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming. As Lisa mentioned, my name is Pam Parco, and 3 years ago, I never would have imagined myself sitting across from you today advocating for legalized retail cannabis. As a military spouse, as a mother of 2 daughters, and as an educator, it just simply didn't have a role in our life. And that was until the most important person in my life changed my perspective. He went from walking with a cane and being barely able to get in and out of bed, in and out of the car, to being pain-free today. It rocked my world, and it changed my mind. My experience, here we are. We have a store. And it's been a fun adventure. But my experience so far has been meeting people like the former military veteran. She's a young mother. She suffers from a disease that affects 1 in 3 million people. And she wants nothing more than to get off her fentanyl patch. The double amputee, former veteran, who wants nothing more than to find a natural product that he can use to, quote, as he says, get his mind right. Or to the young mother who suffers from epilepsy, who lost a 2-year-old daughter to the same disease, that uses cannabis, retail, regulated cannabis, to basically function throughout the day for her other 3 young children. So that's why I'm here today.
Thank you, Pam. Jim?
I always hate following my wife. I've emerged as the spokesperson for Growing Pueblo's Future. So before I start, I want to say thank you to all the men and women, many of you sitting in the audience, many people not here. This is a grassroots effort. This is not a large political campaign. You've got people in suits, calling the shots and politicizing this. These are men and women in this community that realize that we are on the heels of an economic boom. For any of us who lived in Pueblo County for a prolonged period of time, we understood what it was like when the stimulus here, when we actually had 4% unemployment. Once it left in the 1980s, our community suffered. It was tragic. And now we have this opportunity with legal legalization. We were the first in Colorado, along with Denver, and Colorado being the first in the nation. We're the exemplar for everybody. Everybody looks to Pueblo to see how do you do it, because it's been a success here. What we have done, we have created 1,300 jobs. If you read the paper, I've been writing about this. These are 1,300 people that, if not for this industry, aren't exactly sure what they would be doing. When Pam and I started our store, we made a commitment that we were going to try to hire people that did not have jobs. We were almost completely successful. We hired one person that had previously had a job. Everybody else did not. If this industry went away, these people would be back on the street. A young mother raising 3 kids, single income. I could go on with the story. It's heartbreaking. We also have $3.5 million that we're able to pay the general fund. This is a non-trivial amount of money, and this is exclusively due to retail cannabis. These aren't hypothetical numbers. These aren't hypothetical jobs that if we did something, we create this. These are real people with real jobs and real families that are depending on this industry. And I guess I still don't understand why the opposition, the champions of this proposition, feel so strongly about this, because irrespective of how this vote goes, it doesn't change anybody's ability to grow, possess, or consume cannabis in Colorado or in Pueblo County. The only thing that's going to go away if Proposition 200 is successful is the economic benefits. We'll have all the burdens of cannabis and none of the benefits. So I urge you to vote no, and thank you for those who have been helping us and will continue to fight this battle.
Thank you, Jim. Bob? All right.
Thank you. My name is Roger Martin. I'm the founder and executive director of Growth for Vets USA, which is a national now nonprofit that was founded in Colorado. We operate in 6 states currently. I live in Woodland Park, so I don't live in Pueblo County, but there are hundreds of veterans in Pueblo County who depend on retail, or recreational as they love to call it. I'm not sure, I've never heard of recreational alcohol or recreational OxyContin or anything like that, but for adult use, I guess I prefer to call it cannabis. And the primary reason for that, even though supposedly changes in the wind after enough political pressure has been brought to fore with the Colorado Department of Health to change this, but still to this day, PTSD, for example, is not a qualifying condition for which you can obtain a medical marijuana card. And contrary, even though veterans get most of the press when it comes to PTSD, the fact of the matter is, for every veteran that has PTSD, there are probably tens of thousands of civilians who have PTSD, because anybody who's been in domestic abuse, been raped, been in a violent car accident, any traumatic experience that someone's experienced, if you've been in a really traumatic situation, you probably have PTSD. It's that simple. So it's not something that only affects veterans, but as a civilian, you can't get a medical marijuana card in the state of Colorado if your only ailment is you suffer from PTSD. Just one other quick thing I want to say in the introduction here. Again, I live in Woodland Park, which is obviously near Colorado Springs, and closer even to Manitou Springs. And Colorado Springs is a perfect example of how ignorant government can deprive and really hold down the economy of an area. In Manitou Springs, which is contiguous to Colorado Springs, they do have retail and recreational marijuana shops, okay? So everybody that lives anywhere near Colorado Springs goes to Manitou Springs to get their retail cannabis. And they've taken in millions of dollars just in the first year that they've allowed cannabis to be sold in Manitou Springs. And the city council, despite that fact in Colorado Springs, denies the citizens of Colorado Springs equal access, if you will, to the tax revenue and all the other benefits that go along with retail marijuana. So that's why I'm here tonight, just to try to impress upon anybody that's willing to listen, and obviously the opposition to this, for the people that are promoting Ms. Graham and the rest of them are promoting Prop 200. I don't think that they have, if you live in Pueblo County, your best interest in heart at all. A lot of them, I understand she's former law enforcement, as am I. Law enforcement a lot of times feels threatened, but from a budgetary standpoint, if marijuana is legal, and that's the primary reason, believe it or not, law enforcement is afraid of legalization. In a lot of jurisdictions now, it's actually a budget item on police budgets, seized property. And so it's an outrageous situation, but I hope that anybody who's here tonight who's been willing to listen, will take the economic benefit that's going to be deprived of the citizens of Pueblo County into account, as well as the fact that you will be hurting veterans. And Ms. Graham, just to close here, in another event that I was at, they had her on the news the same day they interviewed me, and she claimed to be supportive of veterans and all that. The fact of the matter is, in my mind, if you don't believe that veterans should have safe access to cannabis, you're a veteran hater, and that's exactly what I
Your audience, Bob?
You can see why I wanted him to go first. Great job, Roger. I'm not a Pueblo native, but I am a resident of Pueblo now. And the reason that we came to Pueblo, one of my partners is standing in the back here, is because of what the town had to offer in the political situation here. We looked at opportunities in Denver to build what we wanted to build, and the Denver real estate market was astronomical for the class space it was. We looked at Pueblo and we saw that there was outdoor grows allowed, that there was a high unemployment rate within the county, that real estate values were very reasonable, and we felt that much like the Research Triangle in the Raleigh-Durham area or Silicon Valley in California, that someplace was going to be the epicenter of cannabis in the United States. So Pueblo looked like a wonderful opportunity to us. We sat down and we talked to the current commissioners, listened to what they had to say about the opportunity, and invested in a piece of property out on McCormick Avenue, built that out, and rented it to some people. Spent $3.5 million doing that. And my partner over here, Mark Morley, and his brother owned 1,800 acres out in Mesa. And Mark had gone out and got some licenses, and we talked about the opportunity to put together a fairly large-scale grow out there. He had the water, and we liked the opportunity. one of the commissioners and I went out and met with Leslie Marr at the school and said, you know, wouldn't it be wonderful if you had a school that could feed jobs to an industry that created and perpetuated a continuing industry within your city? Well, she looked like a deer that got caught in the headlights of a car. Her eyes were about this big. Marijuana in the college? No, not in the college. Just research. Do the study. This year, we're fortunate enough to get a bill through the Colorado Senate that gave that opportunity to this industry. Now, much like alcohol or any other thing, you don't have to necessarily agree with it. You can choose not to use it. But do you take the economic benefits of that away from a community like this? We made a decision, we came to Pueblo, that every dollar that we invested would be with the Pueblo company, whether we were buying furniture for an office, whether we were buying equipment for the farm, whether we were buying materials, whether we were using a contractor. We could have gotten some lower prices elsewhere, but growing up in a small county in eastern North Carolina, it was important that you depended on your neighbors and you did business at home. That's what we've tried to do. Not only ourselves, but numerous other businesses. There are 180 businesses that will lose their licenses and their ability to employ people in the county. But I was trained as an economist, and what I learned as an economist was always told us 3.5 to 6 times is the number that you look at for the economic benefits in the community. And I think that that's what we bring to it. We've invested as an industry over $100 million in your community. What other industries have invested $100 million in Pueblo in the last 20 years? Now, we're all normal people. We get up, put our pants on the same way. I don't think I'm a stoner or a hippie or anything else, but I don't deny people's rights to do what they think is important to them. I'm in this business because I financed medical businesses for years. The last medical business we had was 55,000 patients, and we sold it to Duke as part of a healthcare system. I've had people in that industry approach me and tell me about the benefits of cannabis. And I went to my best friend, who's a triple-boarded doctor, and I said, Jay, is this true about cannabis? And he looked right at me, Roger, and he said, you went to a state school, but I know they taught you how to read. I went and I read and I studied for the next 2 years about what this industry could bring to people and the benefits that it brought to people. And I think if you look at it and do the research and you're open-minded, you'll find that before Prohibition, 25 different medicines contained cannabis. Everything from menstrual pains to glaucoma. It was being produced by 5 different pharmaceutical companies, 3 of which are still in existence today. So I don't think the opposition has much grounds to stand on. The cannabis industry didn't create illegal grows. They're illegal. We are under a regulated industry. On our particular farm, we have 289 cameras. We have to store 40 days of data. 1 day of data in the facilities, in the licensed facilities within our farm, is a terabyte of data. I have to ask my grandchildren what a terabyte is because I have no idea. They say it's a lot. But I would urge all of you to do the research, understand what cannabis is all about, understand the benefits that it can bring to a community economically, but to individuals and how it can benefit them. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Bob. You've answered every question I was going to ask. Very concise. To keep the forum moving, I'm going to be asking an opening question to all of you. And then we have 2 podiums set up here. We're going to ask you to ask the questions. So keep that in mind when we wrap up those 4 questions. Jim, I'm going to start with you. There are actually 2 cannabis-related ballot measures. We all know this, but please tell us, 200 is related to county, 300 is related to city. Why is Growing Pueblo's Future only concentrating on 200?
Thank you, Lisa. Growing Pueblo's Future is exclusively vote no on 200 because that's how we registered with the Secretary of State. As an issue committee in the state of Colorado, you have to register. You have to have a registered agent. When we did this back in May, we registered for Proposition 200 exclusively. Later in the summer, they also filed for Proposition 300, which is an identical measure it only applies to the city. So Proposition 200 would prohibit the sale and production of cannabis anywhere in Pueblo County. Proposition 300 would do the same thing within the confines of Pueblo City. We certainly have a message that's very strong and consistent with voting on 300, but part of what we do in our industry is we're compliance driven. Pam and I tell all of our employees, we're not in the cannabis business, we're in the compliance business. And if we do our jobs well, we get to sell cannabis. But first and foremost, we follow the rules. This is a regulated retail industry. And one of the rules we have to abide by is we are only registered for Proposition 200, so we have chosen to stay true to that dictum, and therefore that's what our messaging is.
Are you in support of 300?
Yes.
Pam, let me ask you, who is your average customer that comes in the shop?
I would say look to your left and look to your right, and you are our average customer. We have business people, we have educators, we have health professionals, auto mechanics, all walks of life. They're not criminals, they're not thugs. They don't break rules, they don't break laws. They're productive, contributing members, law-abiding members of society. That's why they choose to come to our regulated retail business and purchase a product that helps them get through their day. Some common themes, many of them, it's the first time they've ever walked into a dispensary. They walk in, eyes wide open, amazed, confused, because they've been programmed for so many years to believe that this was bad, this is wrong, only hippies use cannabis. It's wrong. It's a wrong perception. It's incorrect in so many ways. And these are people that choose to come in, educate themselves about regulated cannabis, and choose to medicate or use it in a way that helps them. And some use it as an alternative to alcohol. Some use it as an alternative to prescription medication. Some use it just to relax and take the edge off. They're responsible users, and that's a common theme every single day.
Thank you, Pam. Bob, in a recent Channel 13 interview, you mentioned that almost 100% of what you purchase at your grow facility goes back into Pueblo's economy. Talk about that. Everything from a desk chair to the paper you write on. Talk about that.
As I mentioned, we felt it was important to be able to contribute back to the community, that if we were going to live in the community, be a portion of it, we need to be fully engaged in the community. So we made a conscientious effort as a partnership to buy everything here, to use general contractors from the area, all the suppliers. So everything that we had purchased, down to our tomato cages and plastic on the field, to the fencing that we've hung up, has all been put into Pueblo companies.
Thank you. Roger, how many veterans do you think in Pueblo County would be affected by this ban? And as a follow-up, how would that ban then affect their psychological and their medical care? Do you have any figures at all on how many veterans in Pueblo County?
Well, not an exact number, but there are thousands of veterans, first of all, in Pueblo County. And I don't know what percentage of them use cannabis. And I will tell you, because the media loves to throw around this 22 veterans a day commit suicide, and the VA throws that number out there too, like they're really proud of it. The important thing is that that number actually comes from a 2012 VA study. It only included 21 states. They left out a few little states like New York, Texas, and California. 23% of the deaths they did look at had no cause of death listed. So the reality is, and the important thing for me now, and my mantra kind of is that pills kill. It's as simple as that. We lose over 50 veterans a day to prescription drug overdose and suicide. So the number's in excess of 50. So the 22 numbers total hogwash. The guys who did the study put right in the study, at the end of the study, you shouldn't rely on this number because it's probably not accurate. And it's not accurate. There are hundreds of veterans I know in Pueblo County who utilize cannabis, and as was mentioned earlier, to either reduce the amount of dangerous drugs they take or completely eliminate them. My belief is that the Veterans Administration policy pretty much probably from when they first started, is to keep veterans in a drug stupor until they either die of a prescription drug overdose or they give up all hope and take their own lives. And that's just a sad reality of a veteran's life. So, if Proposition 200 goes through, it'll have a devastating effect on veterans. And as everybody else here has pointed out, a devastating effect on your economy. Again, I live in Woodland Park, but I've been as an adult, I've been in Colorado, in this area since 1978. So I've seen what Pueblo's gone through. And Pueblo's been known throughout Colorado as one of the most economically depressed areas in the state, in the entire state. The loss of the steel industry obviously was a huge blow. And so when you get people like Bob and others who are willing to invest millions of dollars, literally, into and put that into the lifeblood of economic lifeblood of your community, it's absolutely idiotic, I think, to think about taking that out. And then the final thing is when it comes to your right to vote, Pueblo County and the city of Pueblo, if my memory serves me correctly, both approved adult use cannabis. So the people that have mounted this campaign are pretty much just saying, we don't care what the people voted for. There's nothing bad that's happened in Pueblo. Bob mentioned real briefly too, illegal grows. I want everybody here to know that me, Bob, everybody in this panel here absolutely rejoices every time an illegal grow is busted. It's as simple as that. We don't believe in breaking the law. Again, as Jim pointed out, they're in the compliance business. Bob's in the compliance business. You probably heard the term thrown around often, regulate marijuana like alcohol. Well, everywhere I go in the United States, and every time I talk to the media, I say, in Colorado, if we regulated alcohol like we do marijuana, there'd be no alcohol in the state of Colorado. That's an absolute fact. No liquor licensee would go through the crap that these brave pioneers have to go through to operate their business. So, again, obviously the reason I'm here is for the veterans, be a voice for the veterans, and I I can't overemphasize the devastating effect that the passage of Proposition 200 would have on veterans, and not just the veterans. I see a lot of ladies here too. Veterans who suffer from PTSD, they know why they have the issues that they have in their heads. But their wife can never understand it if they talk till they're blue in the face about it. Their kids can't understand why their dad came back a crazy man and got crazier because the VA shoving drugs down their throats. We have people, many veterans come to us that are taking 20 or 25 or more prescription drugs every single day. And that's just an absolute outrage. So again, the VA just shoves these poison drug cocktails down the throats of veterans. They pass out pills like they pass out candy to kids on Halloween night. So.
Thank you. Roger brought up something, Jim, I want to